Hello there everyone, welcome back to another video about our favourite children's trading card game, the One Piece card game. Today, as we are in mid-April, as of the time of recording and upload, we are about halfway through the Set 2 format. If you look at the number of large events that have happened, and you look at how many more we have coming up, we are pretty much getting to that halfway point, and the metagame has developed considerably. We have a large number of results that we can go over, and I thought now would be a good time to do a little bit of self-reflection, as I did with the Set 1 format, where I went through and I looked at my personal tier list, my predictions, and I compare that to the decks that have been topping so far. Now, I will say I haven't actually got the European information in the same way that you will see here today, and this isn't my final time looking through this, but what I did want to do is go through the US events, as those have been very well documented over on a website which you should all be checking out, which you will be able to find linked in the description. It's called, shout-outs to the Eggman, of course, actual MVP. But anyway, and I just wanted to talk about what I predicted in terms of the best decks and what has ended up being the best. And we're going to look through some first place deck lists as well and just have a discussion on where it looks like the format is going. So let's go ahead and get started. So, this is my video from, gosh, when was this? A month ago, at the beginning of, I'd say early March. This would have been right before set release, and I titled this video, "These are the best decks for the One Piece Championship Series." I think you'll all agree, suitably clickbaited. Now, if we look here, I will very quickly run through the tiers for any audio-only listeners. So, in the bottom in D tier, I put Blue Croc, Blurple Croc, Red Uta, Purple Shanks, Purple King, and Purple Magellan. I'll raise my hand up at this point and I'll say I definitely was being very harsh on Magellan. Magellan is much more of a B/C tier deck, in my opinion. I think I was very much overly harsh on Magellan. In C tier, I have Red Luffy, Black Sakazuki, Red Green Luffy, Red Black Garp, and Blue Purple Kaido. I will also say on Red Luffy, I think that should be in B tier, and I think Red Black Garp should also be in B tier. In B tier, I have Smoker, Black Smoker, Blue Doffy, Red Blue Sanji, and Green Odin. I do think that Black Smoker should probably be in A tier, and Doffy is a bit of an interesting case. I do think it should be in the top of B, with potential to shoot up to A/S tier in a particular format, which I'll discuss more about later. In A tier, I have Purple Kaido, Blue Ivankov, Red Black Zed, Black Purple Zed, Black Purple Zed, and Green Kid. I'm kind of stick by that. Maybe we could drop Kid into B tier. It just hasn't really been putting up any results, though I do still think the deck is very good. And of course, the sort of flagship decks here. In S tier, I put Green Kinemon, Red Whitebeard, Red Zoro, and Red Green Law. So, once again, that was sort of the run-through, and as a reminder, if you're interested in competitive focused content, you can check out my Patreon, where I have 4 deck guides, including very recently my Zoro deck guide. Completing my first 4 deck guides there, you can now find a guide to Kinemon, a guide to Whitebeard, a guide to Zoro, and a guide to Ivankov in my Patreon, which you can find linked in the description. I think it's a very reasonable fee for the in-depth quality content you get over there, and it really does help support the channel. So, of course, if you're interested, I really would appreciate the support there. But basically, the only top deck guide missing there is Law, which will come sooner rather than later. Don't worry about it. So let's now head over to Eggman Events, and this is the landing page you'll find, and I'm just going to quickly show, if you've never been on this website before, it's an amazing resource. I really do think everyone should have this bookmarked. So you can head over in the top left here. You can just about see it. You can see the word Piece here. So if you click on One Piece in the top left, it takes you to One Piece Events. And you can choose which set you're interested in. So this is even cataloging some events that are happening in OP03, but at the moment we're in OP02. So you click on See OP02, and you can see all the events here. And there's even this fantastic little button here. You click Deck List by Leader. You can click on Leaders, and you can go, okay, well, let's see what the Ivankov lists are doing. And what this will do is it'll filter through all the topping lists. So, I mean, really, and even if Eggman himself has a list here, you can find it. So a really, really fantastic resource I thoroughly encourage everyone to use. Let's begin going through these. So I'm going in chronological order, and we'll quickly discuss the representations, and we'll see how those develop, and then we'll see what decks end up winning. So the overall representation, 123 players on Zorro and 121 players on Kinemon in this first ever webcam regionals. 67 on Whitebeard, 43 on Smoker, 33 on Law, and 114 on other decks. If we look into the conversion rates, though, we can see 5 players got through on Kinemon. So the Kinemon conversion, pretty consistent with the number of players. The Whitebeard conversion, again, quite good, consistent with the representation overall. The Zorro conversion, quite poor, a little bit below what you might expect. The Law conversion, really good. Obviously, we know this with Law. If you are a good player, the deck is good. Law really does reward high-level play, and we're going to talk about that more later when we come on to the most recent regionals. Smoker being, again, sort of consistent, and then Ivankov and Zephyr. So none of this really being overly surprising, I think. And the first place deck was Zorro. So if we just move this over a little bit so you can see this deck list here. Yeah, I would say this is a relatively standard list as you go through. The Makinos, the Otamas, the Namis, all very standard. The Gordons, very important. The Sunnykins, very important. The Curly Dodans, absolutely broken guard, very standard. The Brooks, standard. The Vista, standard. The Nico Robin, standard. There's an argument to play Vista instead of Nico Robin, but obviously it's not searchable, so that's the trade-off you make. 4 Rush Zorro, 2 Rush Luffy, 3 9-cost Whitebeard, and 4 Jet Pistols. Personally, I would play 4 9-cost Whitebeard, but I understand it can be very bricky. And that can suck, but obviously you want to see the cards, so it's a trade-off that I'm willing to make personally, but obviously it doesn't really matter, and far be from me to critique a first-place deck list. I'm sure it worked just fine. So yeah, I'd say this is a really standard Zorro list. Not to necessarily rag on the player or anything, but not like crazy spice here. It's fairly standard. This is Zorro. So then we come on to the TAC Games webcam regional. So this was the next day, and again, I'm sorry, let me just go ahead and move this over so you're able to see exactly what I am looking at here. Here we only have a top 16 breakdown, but we can see 6 Zorros, 4 Kinemons, 3 Whitebeards, 2 Kaidos, and a Smoker. So Kaido making an appearance. No Ivankov, no Zephyr. Smoker, once again, scraping through. But we're seeing a real dominance of Zorro, Kinemon, and Whitebeard, right? That's our 3 decks we're basically seeing that are doing bits. And, of course, we see a Kinemon victory. So this is the Kinemon list. And once again, let me go ahead and drag this over a little bit just so you can see. So, as, usual, this is a fairly standard Kinemon list, right? You got the Gibsons, which is incredibly important in set 2 for dealing with the Zorro matchup, and then you go through the list, right? You've got 1 Waterfall, which is very, very nice with the 7-cost kids. We got the 7-cost kids card is amazing. We got the Odins, we got the X-Drakes, very nice in the mirror match, and of course I do apologise, my entire setup just seemed to shit itself for a second there. So continuing with the list, you've got the Yamatos, you've got the Okikus, very important, you've got the Ryzos, nice for plussing, nice into the Zorro matchup, you got your 2k counters, you got your blockers, you got your searchers. I would say a very, very standard Kinemon list again. There isn't these huge revolutionary techs. Generally speaking, this Kinemon player clearly predicted that there was going to be a field full of Zorros and full of Kinemons. Now, personally, I think 7-cost Kid is a fantastic tech for that Kinemon mirror. I think another really nice card is Basil Hawkins, but it's a little bit expensive. It's not got a counter. It is a very bricky deck, so I can see why you wouldn't want to play it. And I think certainly, Paradise Waterfall is a fantastic tech. There's lots of good techs here, right? So moving on to the PPG webcam regionals now. So this was a little bit later, and here we have a total leader breakdown as well. Zorro and Kinemon at similar counts, Zorro of course being the most played, a decrease in play for Whitebeard, and then Smoker, Eva, Kaido, and Law all at relatively similar counts, and then we've got a whole load of other ones. If we look at the top 16 leaders, though, and I do think this is pretty interesting, so we have 6 Kinemons, and the 6 Zorros. This is actually, is it 6 Kinemons or 6 Zorros? So this is actually incorrect. One of these is incorrect. I'm going to assume that this list here is correct, and there's a mistake on this. So 6 Kinemons, 4 Zorros, 3 Whitebeards, 1 Law, 1 Magellan based, and 1 Luffy. So I think what this is evidence of is a shift in the meta towards Kinemon, which is what we saw happen in Japan. We saw Zoro being very, very prevalent, and then we saw, but obviously Zoro was pretty much dominant. Kinemon didn't really exist for a little bit. We have the benefit of seeing Japan's format here, so we kind of jumped in immediately with a bit more of a split, and now we have moved more into this even distribution, and now leaning more towards Kinemon. So if we look at this Kinemon list here, this is the list that the winner used, and again, let me just drag this over. Really the major changes: this list plays 4 Odin. It's fit in a couple of 5-cost lores. I love 5-cost lore. The more and more I play, the more and more I just love this card. It's cut down a bit on the Gibsons, but by and large, it's pretty much the same. This is just some minor personal preference, some minor tech choices. It's always nice to be able to just bounce and replay the Okiku, and just not worry about that. You can play a Raizo, swing with the Raizo, bounce a Raizo, play the Okiku. There's lots of nice things you can do. So, overall, I would say another very standard Kinemon list, nothing insanely crazy. Then we have our Top Cut webcam regionals. So this was a huge shift in the North American format, because this saw Strawbeard put up really powerful results. Now, I'm not. This is not a comment that is meant to disparage these players, but this is more a comment about how it seems like the average player in these regionals was not well equipped for the multiple different variants of Whitebeard. And perhaps that's pretty understandable. They weren't super popular, and most people probably, don't think to... they just go, okay, Whitebeard, I play the Whitebeard cards, right? I play Moby Dick, that's what they've seen, putting up results, and they've seen that in Japan in set 3, so potentially you just go, whatever. However, if you do know you're playing into Strawbeard, you actually have to play quite differently, and if you don't play differently into Strawbeard, they steamroll the matchup, and I do think this is a major reason why we saw such a dominance of this deck at this event. Not necessarily because the deck is particularly powerful, and not necessarily because the players were overwhelmingly more skilled, though certainly they clearly are very, very skilled. I'm not saying they're not. But I do think we see this significant overrepresentation in the power level of Strawbeard, and we're going to see it continue as just this complete dominance in the North American format for a little while, as players kind of just immediately gravitate towards it and then figure out how to beat it. So we see here the top 16, 7 Whitebeards. 4 Zoros, 2 Laws, 1 Luffy, 1 Kinemon, and 1 Doffy. So you just see Kinemon just die. And this is one of the things with Strawbeard. Strawbeard has a phenomenal Kinemon matchup, especially if they don't know what they're dealing with. Kinemon does not have a large amount of counterpower. So if you are just swinging, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, again and again and again and again over the course of the entire game, Strawbeard is able to maintain a large hand, deal with those big attacks. By the time Kinemon's able to get out an Odin and actually stick any big attacks, they're usually not killing you on the first turn after an Odin. So especially with Whitebeard's hand size, so this is one of the problems. Now, these lists, and this list does say all Edward Newgate builds are Straw Hats. You see, every Strawbeard, every one of these lists is Strawbeard. It'd be really interesting to see what proportion of the actual Whitebeard lists were Strawbeard, because I think the Strawbeard conversion was probably phenomenally high. But yeah, let's take a look at one of these Strawbeard lists, which we can see here. And I would say, this is a fairly standard Strawbeard list, right? You got the Sanjis as 2k counters and obviously a powerful card. You got the Aces because Rush, this card is insane. You got the Robins for dealing with the chump blockers and just dealing with the Zoros and dealing with all the important things it needs to deal with. Of course, combo with Otama to deal with bigger things as well. It's like an Okiku. This Luffy is played primarily because it is a 2k counter that is very, very searchable, but, it is also potentially a 7k attacker, which is obviously very, very nice, which you can get out early game. Nami's for search, Makino's because it's a broken card, Brooks for 2k counter, and it's also very powerful. The 6k, the 4k, the 4-drop 6k is incredibly important in the strength of this deck. Just beating down 6ks is so good. You're not giving your opponent like free targets to swing into. One of the major weaknesses of Whitebeard is the fact that you can just, once they play down a 4-cost Marco, if you can force them to use it, you can just swing into it again and again and again and again. And most Whitebeard players are going to be kind of bad and just going to let their hand resources get drained by protecting the Marco when it's really not the play. So that is something to bear in mind. Of course, then you got the Vistas and the Otamas, classic cards, 4 copies of Edward Newgate and 4 copies of Monkey D. Luffy, Rush Luffy. So you got, 12 6Ks in the deck, plus the 7K from Ace, and of course, Whitebeard being an insanely strong card. And then, of course, you've got these 6 events, the 4 Radical Beams and the 2 Guard Points. This is a very, very standard Strawbeard list, but of course very, very, very good. And you know, if people are not used to playing as Strawbeard, this is going to stomp. I'm not surprised it did. So if we move now onto the Top Cut regionals, which was the day after, as you can see, we just see the same thing, right? You have this insanely diverse Top Cut and then Strawbeard, right? Like we have one Kinemon, one Smoker, one Kid, one Doffy, one Ivankov, one Luffy, one Law, 2 Zoros, 7 Whitebeards. I don't think there is any overlap in between the players, but you can just see Strawbeard absolutely barreling through and being incredibly powerful. And of course, if we take a look at the winning list here for this event, very, very similar. You know, the major differences is this list plays more copies of Sanji and less copies of these 4K vanillas, and that's because it decided to play some Marcos and some Jozus for extra rush, as well as some more Whitebeard pirate stuff. Personally, I don't... Kingju, I don't know that I would be prioritizing Atmos over these, but obviously you're doing it because you want cards to pitch for Marco to keep it alive, so I do understand the logic there, and of course you've got your 5 Radical Beams. 4 Radical Beams. So yeah, again, another fairly standard Strawbeard list. And this kind of started an era where, like, all anyone could talk about was Strawbeard. You know, people were hyping up how strong the deck was. Again, it's very, very possible to play around. You just got to learn the matchup. And then that takes us to our most recent event. Won by the Cross AI. Shoutouts to Cross. Well done, man. I'm so proud of you. You finally stopped fumbling. Shoutouts to my man. But, yeah, like we can see here, you know, 6 Edward Newgates, 4 Straw Hats, 2 Moby Dick variants in the top cut, 4 Kinemons, 3 Doffys, 2 Laws, and 1 Zoro, but the Law takes it all. And of course, Moby Dick Whitebeard ended up coming in 2nd place, 4th being Doffy and Kinemon. And we can see the Strawbeard variants actually top 16, top 8, and I think the last one was top I can't find it. Top 16 as well. So 3 of them lost in top 16. And this, and I will say, typically I'll shit on NA, but for playing Doffy, but actually no, this was a really, really savvy play by the players who took it for this event, because it has really nice matchups into Strawbeard. Doffy in set 2 is able to put out these 6Ks. It's able to contest Strawbeard's board. It's able to do those swings into leader, which you just need to do. And it's a really, really powerful deck, and it doesn't have a bad Kinemon matchup either. So it was actually a very, very good play. So let's talk about the deck list for first place. This is Cross's list, and you can find it here. He did a deck profile where he goes into a little bit more depth, which you can find. I'll try and remember to link it below. But yeah, of course, this is a fantastic list. I will say very much built with that Whitebeard meta in mind. So it is possible that this isn't the ideal list, and I will say, and I'm sure Cross will 100% agree. The thing with Law is you need to be a very good player in terms of its actual play. You need to be a very good player in terms of its deck construction. Whilst 40 to 45 of the cards are fixed, the remaining cards are incredibly important because they're usually very searchable, and you need to build for the meta you are playing into. Cross, you know, I've spoken with him a lot, and he said that basically, yeah, I was expecting like this Whitebeard format, right? Like I wasn't so worried about the Kinemon matchups. I wasn't so worried about those. I was more focused on those Whitebeard ones because that's what I was expecting to play more of. And of course, this paid dividends for him because he was able to win those matchups. And Kinemon was less popular, and certainly in Top Cut, it was basically, you know, relatively small compared to those Whitebeards. And I believe his top 16 matchup was Doffy. I think his top 8 might have been a Kinemon, and of course he won that. But there we go. So overall, where do I see this meta shifting? We have very much been on a similar trajectory to Japan's understanding of the format, of course, with a little bit of a spicy shift into that Strawbeard taking over for a little bit. But I do think that is starting to dial back. I completely agree that Strawbeard is the build of Whitebeard that is better, but I do also think that, you know, a large part of the reason it was performing so well despite its relative inconsistency was you know, compared to some of the other top decks in the format, right? Like Kinemon has 8 searches, and like Law has, you know, 8 searches, and Zoro has 8 searches as well, and like it goes very fast. So like relative to the other, like, you know, big decks, I would say like Strawbeard is like the least consistent. Obviously it's not very consistent, but the reason I think it's performed so well was that lack of matchup knowledge in the player base. But now the deck has been around for long enough that people really should be testing the matchup with their decks, and they should have a good understanding of how to play it and how to win it. So where do I see this meta going? If we go back to my original list, of what my predictions were. As you can see, I was look, not to pat myself on the back too much, but I was pretty much bang on, right? Like, what were the decks that have been popping off? It was the decks I put in S tier, right? the only decks that have won a regionals have been up there. So hey, you know what? Maybe your guy does know what he's talking about. What do I see happening here? I do think there is a lot of room to explore and a lot of room for players who are very, very good on decks like Kaido, on decks like Eva, on decks like Zephyr to perform very, very well. Smoker won the first EU regionals. I don't think that's going to happen now. I don't think that was possible again for a little while, but we've been seeing Zoro decrease in play again and again and again. And as Zoro decreases in play, you know what gets really, really, really powerful? Black decks. So I think what we might see moving forward is a resurgence of black decks followed by a resurgence of Zoro decks. I think right now we're in an interesting place in the format where people aren't really wanting to play Zoro so much, and as a result, because everyone's on these Whitebeard decks, the decks that are able to have very good matchups into that, but have perhaps had quite poor matchups into Zoro, are able to rise to the top. So I would expect to see, of course, the 4 decks in S tier doing very, very well. I'd expect to see more Ivankov, more Zephyr, and more Smoker in the foreseeable future. And as the format starts to wrap up, I would expect to see a resurgence of Zoro decks. It wouldn't surprise me if the last tournament of our set 2 format is won by a Zoro. But there we go. That is my recap of the format so far, as well as my impressions of the format. Oh my god, my t-shirt, that's so embarrassing. Oh god, it was there the entire time. Oh, I thought I was professional. Right. If you guys found this video useful, please do like it. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Has my analysis been accurate? Do you think other decks are being mega slept on? As I said, I completely own up to underrating a few of those decks, as I outlined in the start of the video. But if there's any other ones, or you think there's ones I'm overrating, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Subscribe to the channel for more One Piece content. Of course, if you want to get the sort of competitive content, the in-depth guides I was talking about, help players get top 8 and all that sort of stuff, you can check my Patreon, which will be linked in the description. Check out Eggman Events, check out Cross's channel. Shout outs to those guys, and thanks again for watching this video. Hope to see you guys in the next one. Cheers.